Dear reader, welcome back. Journey with me, this intrepid naturalist of ambiguous reliability, as I endeavour to render in watercolour the hidden habitations that curiously conceal themselves amongst flowers, moss, woods and fields, some too small to measure, some too strange to explain, and some too cheeky to accurately depict, but all quite worthy of notice.
Journal entry, Day 2. The Sun Grass Hearth. The sun bloomed relentlessly through my window on the morning of Day 2, granting me the perfect conditions to visit the Sun Grass Hearth, as it can only be found when fields burn golden from the sun. I had heard a great deal of gossip about this hearth from the fae folk I had encountered in the area several years before. My woeful compass, which was of no help to me at all during yesterday's research endeavour, was in the shop being reworked by Mr. Watchmaker and Sons. It needed several hands on it to control its now incorrigible pointers. So I must pip my hopes on that it will be in full working order soon. In the meantime, I had to rely on directions I acquired from a bronze-coloured grasshopper I fortuitously bumped into on my way out of the watchmaker's shop. He was really rather delightful, although quite cryptic with his direction giving. It was later that I learnt that a grasshopper would never give you a straight path, only something wrapped in hops, skips and twirls. The grasshopper, after much throat clearing, delivered the following directions, which I have transcribed faithfully. Seek no shade, for shade is a fibster. March boldly to the glare, because the sun is the truther. Count 7 hops past the fiddly sticks, and then 3 bounds beyond the bindi pricks. The path may sway like ribbons, your brain may feel like scribbins, the wind may whirl your shoelaces, but hippity hop 9 dozen more times, and there you'll find your place. Well, sometimes. My main concern upon the conclusion of this poem was simply, how does one determine a unit of a hop? A grasshopper's? My own? A lumbering toad's? I had elected, for the sake of science, to try all 3. Even after these mind-muddling directions, the true destination of the Sun Grass Hearth remained elusive. But I was comforted by the brass grasshopper's warm laughter, which chuckled in perfect harmony with the grasses around us. Perhaps the grasses were in on some kind of joke? I suspect they were, because I spent a warm morning of stubborn misinterpretation, botched arithmetic, and a regrettable attempt to hop like the grasshopper did, which ended in a graceless collapse into some grabby brambles. I pressed forward. After picking twigs and bugs' pyjamas out of my tousled hair, my journal and painting box clutched to my chest. I powered on. Eventually, I noticed a heat mirage shimmering above a small hill of pink and gold. The path revealed itself when scruffy yellow grasses and paper daisies bent to each side with each step I took. And there it was, a hearth no larger than a thimble, nestled under the shade of a huddled cluster of cornflowers. The air around it smelled sweet, like baked seeds and perhaps some honeyed ginger. The occupant of this tiny home bounded from the front door and climbed to the top of my easel, which I had just set down. I smiled and bowed my head as I greeted the dear little thing. They handed me a sandwich which was constructed of 2 oats, filled with a dollop of cream. "Eat up, young one. You've had quite the trek to get here. I hope you didn't try to hop the entire journey." I must admit that I felt the need to respond with a tiny white lie, if only to preserve a little of my remaining dignity, as I intrusively relived my tumble into the brambles in my mind's eye. My flushing cheeks, I fear, may have given that away, although the little fellow's smile didn't waver. "You have a head full of sand," my new friend voiced. I snorted, assuming they were teasing me. "Oh, it's a delightful thing to be full of sand, so to speak. It means to be determined, and sand is determined to explore every nook and cranny it is swept into." I sat down and began to paint. My comrade blathered extensively about absolutely everything. I tried to scroll down some of the fascinating quips, but between juggling a paintbrush, the sweat collecting on my brow, grass trying to dip into my paint palette, a barrage of cream-filled oat sandwiches, which would hardly fill a tooth, mind you, I found it entirely unachievable. Although I did manage to remember these, which I shall write down now. "Our family came here on the wind, all 37 of them, floating on one length of web. They drifted for ages before they got snagged by a cornflower here. They would always tell me, 'If you don't grab hold of something, you'll float forever, and forever is terribly drafty.' Yes, I collect sand. Each grain remembers a mountain or a shore, you see, and we need those memories to keep the warmth in. The cornflowers shelter and watch over our place during the day. At night they shut, which means that it is our turn to keep watch. It's a very good arrangement." Did you know that cornflowers can detect a hawk's sneeze from 2 miles away? Astounding. Dryness is safety. The sky juice swells the world too much. We hide because humans are clumsy and birds are greedy. Hiding keeps ourselves secret. Plus, we can hear ourselves think. Sometimes that is rather dangerous though, but we risk it. I painted wildly and somewhat recklessly. I had to move fast, you see, as my pigments dried so quickly, determined to crack and crumble before me. The wind was also an obstacle and sent me barreling after flung colour swatches and somersaulting brushes. I was forced to anchor everything with stones, and still several sketches escaped on the wind, cartwheeling across the shrubs until they were utterly gone. Some additional observations, questions, and conclusions. The dryness of this place creates a kind of music, clicking stalks, whistling seed heads, the chimes of soft sand dancing amongst the leaves. Perhaps the house itself is a mirage, cloaked in a polite magic which allowed me to visit. The heat is softer than I imagined, a different heat to what I have known. It didn't harm me. At one point, my hat became a temporary stage for a weevil orchestra. Their jaunty arrangements utterly drowned my own note-taking. What must life be like here, in this parched, wind-slept place, I wondered. In this place that insists on easing one to napping. Perhaps it's the constant surretations of the grasses which lulls the hearth and anyone within its mirage to sleep, guarding its own secret with the white noise. Regardless, I deemed my paintings as finished just as the tiny resident crawled back inside to take their slumber. I felt that the hearth itself seemed to insist that I do the same, to head home, and to leave the mysteries to remain suggested and never fully revealed. Oh, until my next endeavour, dear reader. Too-roo.